There you go. So, all right, everybody. My name is Jorge, and welcome to another installment of our Self-Care series. We're going to be making a king cake today, and it is a very long recipe. It has a lot of steps. Just send you the recipe over email so you guys can follow that later. I'm going to show you the different stages that it takes for you to make the king cake, but also to make it in a way that if you have any issues or something, you can look at that later. So king cake is amazing. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. It's the best part of Mardi Gras. I feel like for me specifically, because I'm like a food person, as soon as like Mardi Gras starts, like Mardi Gras season, I buy a king cake. My favorite place is Tartine. There's a lot of different king cake places, right? There's like La Boulangerie, there's Pretzel and Oak, there's vegan king cakes, there's like apple king cake, raspberry king cake, cream cheese king cake, the traditional king cake, which is just the dough, and then you just put icing on it, and that's perfectly delicious. So there are all kinds of king cake. However, the one that I'm making today is something that I've developed based on different king cakes that I've tasted here, and I like the dough on this one, I like the filling on that one. So it is my favorite one because I make it. But it's very easy to make in terms of like what you need to do to make it. It's just a very long recipe. Full disclosure though, if there's anyone here from Louisiana, I have to say I am not claiming that I know the best recipe for king cake, right? Like there's no best recipe. Every recipe's right. But the way that I put it right now is I'm not saying I'm the authority on king cake. Just make it. If you like it, that's great. If not, that's fine too, right? There's all kinds of king cakes and all kinds of tastes. What you should never do is make a savory king cake. Don't ruin cake for everybody. We like cake. We like sweet stuff. We don't want garlic bread and you put a baby in it and call it king cake. And someone mentioned on the chat that someone's grandparent like broke their tooth biting on a baby. Well, yes, after the king cake is done, you put a little baby in it, and whoever gets the baby has to bring the next king cake to the office or to the party or whatever. And just be careful because the first time that I had king cake here was about 8 years ago. They brought it to the office and I cut a big slice and I'm like devouring that king cake. No one told me that there was a baby in it and I got the baby. So I like bit into it and I was like, what in the world? And it was an actual baby. And I still have that baby. Well, I think I do. I don't know where I have it, but I have several plastic babies in the house. That sounds kind of weird, but you know the what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna go ahead and start because we don't have a lot of time. So the first thing you need to make king cake is going to be yeast. It's a yeasted cake, which is basically a bread, and it's an enriched dough. So it's going to have eggs and butter and sugar. It's not going to be like a regular bread. Most cakes right nowadays, people make them with like baking powder or baking soda. However, nowadays like I don't know where I was going with that. So yeasted cakes need yeast. You can make them with baking powder, baking soda. It's not going to be the same flavor. It's not going to be the same texture either. So you need all these different things that are happening in the dough to happen in order for it to taste the way that it has to taste. And what causes that is fermentation. And the biology class is over at this point. Basically, what we have here is a quarter cup of hot milk that I heated up in the microwave for about 30 seconds or so. And then to that hot water, I added a quarter cup of ice cold water. And what that does is it basically levels out the temperature of the milk. So you're going to have a liquid that is perfect for yeast. And you're going to add 3 teaspoons of yeast to that mixture. And you're going to mix it up. Before you add the yeast, put your finger in the milk mixture and make sure that it's not too hot. So you're going to add the yeast, then you're going to add a tablespoon of honey. And I'm adding honey not for flavor so much as I am adding it to feed the yeast because, when you get up, you want to eat right. The yeast is asleep, so it needs breakfast. So give it some honey, get it going. And you're going to stir it up and just leave it there for about 10 minutes. If you have very fresh yeast, it's probably going to grow like that. If you have an older yeast, it might take a little time. But the important thing is that it foams. And I can show you really quick how the foam actually looks. Let me bring it up there. Ooh, it's actually wet, the plastic wrap. That's because of all the gases and condensation that happens in there. So I hope you all can see this. You see like wiggly and it's like a bunch of like weird stuff on top of the liquid, that means you're good to go. So to this, you're gonna add the flour immediately. And this is when it's gonna get a little loud. So I hope that y'all can hear me. So actually, first thing that I'm gonna add is I'm gonna add about a third cup of sugar. On the recipe, I have everything by grams. And the reason that I do that is because when you're baking, that's more exact, right? What I have, my quarter cup measure is not going to be the same as your quarter cup measure. So that's why I always do it by grams, but you can always do it by cups. It should be fine. The good thing about bread is that unlike cake, it's not as finicky. So you can make it a little bit less, a little bit more, and it'll be okay. So adding the sugar. And I'm going to add half a teaspoon of almond extract. So almond extract is the thing that makes king cake king cake. Like I don't think if you have king cake without almond extract, it's gonna taste like king cake. That's my opinion. But the reason it has almond extract is because in France, this is just an assumption that I'm making. In France, they make something called galette de roi, which is a French king cake, if you may. That's where it comes from. But it's basically a pastry with almond cream. And just like the king cake, they put a little almond in it. And whoever gets the almond is king or queen for the day. So like the almond flavor kind of brings that back. But you could also make it with almond cream if you want to. I'm using a stand mixer. You could do this by hand if you want to. It's going to take you a little bit longer. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. Something that I would suggest if you're doing it by hand, instead of following the directions on how to make it with a stand mixer, you could add the yeast, the eggs, the butter. That should be at room temperature. And all those other ingredients except the flour to a ball. And you're just gonna mix them with your hands and you're gonna crush the butter until it has like small bits. And then you can add the flour and mix. And you're gonna end up with like a cinnamon roll type of bread in a way. It's not gonna be just that just because of the amount of butter that we have in here. But you're gonna get something that's like, still a king cake. It's just not gonna have the texture that I have by making it with a stand mixer. However, you can still do it by hand. If you want to do a brioche by hand, be my guest. I've never done it. I never will. There's not enough hours in a day. But I'm going to mix this really quick. And it's going to get pretty loud now. See, you don't have to do it too long. All you have to do is kind of like get everything, mixed together. And you're going to add all the flour immediately. And I have 2 cups of flour here. And 3/4 cups of bread flour. You could use 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and it'll be fine. I like using the bread flour because we're gonna break this, and that gives it a little bit more structure. So it's gonna help it withstand the stretching, and it won't tear and whatnot. So I'm gonna add that right now. There's also, and if some flour falls out. You just cover the bench right now. Yeah, I'm stingy with my flour. So there's about a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt here, diamond crystal. That salt is actually not as salty, so I highly recommend using that when you're baking because it's a little bit more forgiving. If you have the coarser salt, like Morton salt, then use only about 3/4 teaspoons or half a teaspoon. And to mix this flour, you want to do it little by little because if not, you're just going to have like a cloud of flour all over your house. And I don't want to vacuum later. So I'm just going to do a few pulses. Okay. So now that I've mixed enough, I hope you all can hear me well still. Now that it's mixed enough, I'm going to just let it all come together. And it's going to get really shaggy. It's going to take the shape of like clumps and whatnot. Like when you're making biscuits, you're kind of like getting the flour together and it gets all clumpy. That's what's going to happen. And it's just going to go for a minute until most of the flour is incorporated. You're going to keep on mixing it as you go. But, if you mix as much flour now, later it's going to be much easier to mix in the butter and the eggs and all of that. So this is done. And I can show you kind of how it looks. And let me actually get a spatula. it's gonna be easier to deal with the dough that way. This is the third dough that I made in less than like 24 hours. So it's gonna look kind of like this. And it has this like, grainy texture, and, you can easily touch it and it's not gonna get sticky or anything. So once it gets to that point, you're gonna start adding the eggs. And for the eggs, you really want to add them, one at a time. If you add them too fast, it's gonna take much longer to mix. It's one of those weird things that like, you might think, oh, let's add them all together. It's gonna take less time. If you add them all at one section, it's gonna take you much longer. You might have to add more flour, right? So doing it one by one is just, perfect. And I have 3 large eggs here. They're all at room temperature. The reason I have them at room temperature is because if I put them in cold, which you could, they will make the dough take longer to rise, right? And this already has to rise for 2 hours after you're done making it. So you don't want it to go for too long. So I'm gonna add one first. And if one of them breaks and 2 of them go in, that's fine. Just do it little by little until they're both mixed in. And again, pulsing because I don't want to make a mess. So because this is like a tough dough, your stand mixer is going to start like doing all kinds of things, and it's going to be like, I don't like this, please make it stop. We've all had to buckle up this past year, so this can happen, right? Just let it be. It's gonna be fine. So don't get scared if that happens. Okay, so that looks good, and I'm gonna show you really quick. See, as you can see, that dough is coming together really nicely. Full disclosure though, it is not gonna look as nice after I add the second egg. It starts out really nice, then it gets super shaggy, then it looks kind of nice again. It's a whole journey for the bread. Okay, so here we go. Oh. And so you have to take your time with it because it likes jumping around. What's happening right now is that it's developing some gluten, and that gluten is going to help it, stretch out later. You're going to get a fine crumb in the cake that if you would make it with just like baking soda. Okay, that's all mixed. And see, this already looks a little stickier. It's, not, I can bring a little bit over there so you can see it. See, it's not as pretty as it was before, but believe me, it'll get there. Okay. As always, you want to scrape all the dough off the paddle attachment whenever you're doing this, because that way you make sure that there's no rogue pieces of egg just hanging out that didn't mix well. I don't know you, but I don't want a piece of like boiled like egg inside the cake. All right. Come on. There you go. Oh, what an effort. That's ready. Ooh. It's making a lot of sounds that are not very attractive, but that's just one step towards our goal. And you're gonna let this go for a minute. You don't want to rush it at this point. Okay. All right. It's getting shaggier. It is looking more like something that could potentially become bread dough. And this is actually a brioche dough. Like you could just fully use the same dough and make brioche. And people will be like, you're amazing, you made bread. So that's the great thing about this recipe. Okay, so now, see, it's all like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like, it looks almost like scrambled eggs. That's the best way to describe it. It looks almost like scrambled eggs, and it's not. It's just like a bunch of flour and eggs and sugar. So to make this all come together, we are going to add a lot of butter. And come to think of it, I don't remember. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so on the recipe, it says that you should have butter at room temperature. And you might be wondering, why did he take that butter out of the fridge? Well, because I left it out for too long, so it got too soft. So basically what I did is I put it in the fridge for like 20 minutes or 15 minutes until it regained the texture that I wanted. And I can show you really quick what I mean. When recipes say room temperature, they don't mean like melted or squishy. They mean that you can do this. So you can press into it. I pressed too strongly. I made a hole in the thing. But basically that's what room temperature means. Right. This is a step that's not supposed to be in the recipe, but things happen. Okay, let me get a knife. Not knife. Yes. And this part is a little tedious because you have to add the butter tablespoon by tablespoon, but it's all worth it in the end. You're gonna have great bread. So add the first one, and again on low speed, you're gonna mix it. I am going to make it a little faster than I should. This is not the best thing for the mixer's motor, but I don't use it a lot, so you know, why wait for too long when I can just do it faster? Yeah. So, okay. And you're gonna keep on adding them one by one. That's gonna be like the one thing that takes the longest of this, you know, like dough. After you do that, all you do is put it in the fridge, let it rise, and you're good to go until much later. And the dough is changing quite a bit. Um, it started really shaggy, kind of scrambled eggy, and as you keep on adding the butter, it's gonna keep on changing. The reason that I'm using the paddle attachment and not the dough hook is because the dough hook doesn't really work that well for enriched doughs. I mean, if you make one and it works for you, then that's great. But the dough hook, I think it's a scam. If I'm gonna need something, I'll just do it by hand, right? Like this is actually much better because it's pulling the dough from all kinds of directions, so it's developing more gluten much faster. Okay. So see, it's already coming together, and it's already pretty like stretchy, and it looks much better than it did before. It's gonna start looking almost like buttercream, actually, or like cake batter. So yeah. Ooh. This one's going much faster than the other ones that I made for some reason. Don't ask me why, but it is sure is going. And you're gonna notice as you mix it that a clump is gonna form in the middle of the mixer, right where the paddle attachment is. That's gonna make a clump of batter, and you're gonna see that it's kind of like pull the batter, well the dough, away from the sides of the mixing bowl, and that's a good thing. You want it to do that. That means that the gluten is forming, and that you're gonna actually have something you can work with later. And then there. As for the butter, that's a stick and a half of butter, more or less. I think, yeah, 12 tablespoons, so a stick and a half of butter. You could substitute butter for margarine if you wanted to. I wouldn't use margarine, like if you are someone that doesn't want to eat dairy, right, or you want to make like a vegan king cake. I never made a vegan king cake or a vegetarian king cake. If you make it, let me know how it comes out. But you could use vegan butter if you wanted to. You could use whatever butter like fat you want to use. I wouldn't use just like oil or something like that. That's not gonna give you like a good cake. Okay. Well, yeah. Let me take that out and just bring it all back down so I can. Let me see. That's a question, I think. Yeah, so someone asked if this was like a French tradition, and that is such an interesting thing about king cake, right? Because New Orleans, right, is at some point New Orleans was Spanish, at some point New Orleans was French, and I think king cake is kind of combining two different traditions. In Spain, they make something called rosca de reyes, which is like an epiphany type of like Easter cake, and it's like a round, just like a king cake. It has different flavorings. I don't think they put anything inside it, but it is that sort of like cake. And then in France, they make galette de roi, which is a pastry that has almond cream in it. Very, very tasty. I made it myself, and it's so good. So that one has an almond in it, and whoever gets the almond is king or queen for the day. So it depends, right, on the country. So I call king cake kind of like a mixture of Mediterranean traditions around, after Epiphany. But in New Orleans, it's a completely different thing, and it has taken on a life of its own, right? Like, not only do you find king cake in New Orleans, you find it throughout Louisiana. You also find it in Alabama, and all the way to Pensacola, actually. Like, I went to Pensacola about a year ago, and one of my students was like, "Oh yeah, we have king cake here," and I was so shocked to hear that, right? Which is fascinating. That it's like a Gold Coast kind of thing. You can find it all throughout Mardi Gras. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna add the last two pieces of butter, and again, I'm getting impatient, so I am trying to get this going. Yeah. One. Okay. Trying to do too many things at once. Right. So this should go if you use like a dough hook. It's probably gonna take you like 10 minutes or so. If you use the paddle attachment, it'll be a little bit faster. If you do this by hand, it's gonna take you a little bit longer. So just keep that in mind. I'm looking at the ground because my cat is currently under the tripod, which is very scary. He could knock it out at any time. All right, let's do its thing. Yeah, so here's the question: if I bake often, I do. I make a lot of things. Let me stop this really quick and wash my hands because I have. Cool. Yeah, so I do bake quite a lot. That's like kind of like my hobby. I actually have. I actually made some bread yesterday. Like, I made this bread. It's like sourdough bread. I've been making sourdough since before the sourdough craze, right? Like, I've been making it for about 2 years now. But yeah, I love baking and I love making bread. It's one of those things that I can dedicate my time to and not think about anything else but what I'm making, right? It's very meditative, especially once you get good at it. It takes a few months to actually get the hang of your starter and your dough and all that. But once you know how to make it, it's actually really fulfilling. And I don't think I have eaten grocery store bought bread for the past 2 years. Tough. Like, we always have fresh bread every week at home. Uh, so how do you know the dough is ready? I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So this is really, going at it, and this is the part that's a little like, here we are waiting 10 minutes until this gets to where it has to get. But I just wanted to show you guys how to make it before I get to that point. So you'll know the dough is ready when it does two things. When it clumps all around the paddle attachment, and by clump, I mean it'll all be attached to that paddle attachment, right? Like, there's not going to be much dough around the surface of the ball. But then there's also the window pane test, which is you stretch the dough enough until you can kind of see through it. And then once it can stretch that far, then that means that it's done. And believe me, you definitely want that, because if you don't get it to be as stable as it is when it can actually stretch enough like that, it's not gonna rise well. It's gonna like be kind of like a flat pancake. It'll still be tasty. It just won't be, as good. And this is almost ready. I'm gonna have to give my stand mixer a vacation after this. Okay. This is almost getting there. I'm just gonna let it go for a little bit longer just to get mixture. Yeah, see, like you'll hear the, if quiet. That is so nice. If the stand mixer is going like that's fine. Once it feels like it's just gonna jump off your table, then maybe you want to reduce the speed of the mixer. So I'm gonna, yeah, this looks ready to me. And you'll see how much it's changed. See, like now it's like dough. Now it's not like a clump of nothing. Let me forget measure, just check. And I'm winning my hands because when you have a dough like this, it's actually easier to just like grab a piece of it with your hands. It's not gonna be as sticky. And see, like obviously it's gonna rip when you try to rip it out, but you grab a piece like this and you start stretching it, it's gonna be sticky. So just be ready, right? It's not gonna be like the easiest to work with kind of dough, but when it's ready, it's gonna do this. And see, like it's stretching, and that's why they call it a window pane, because it's kind of like if you have like a stained window or something, stained glass or something, you can kind of like make it look that way. So yeah, this is ready. I think this is visible there. See, that means that it's ready, and you can probably stretch this a little bit longer. I don't want to like break it and make it fall on the ground, but this is ready. And the easiest way to take this off the hook is with a spatula. I highly recommend buying these baby spatulas. My mom got me this for Christmas one year, and they have been my favorite tool in the kitchen. So they're available everywhere. Okay, so she is, okay. It's actually really, really well mixed because it's really fighting me to get up this hook. And all right. If you want, after you're done doing this, like if you don't know if the dough is ready, you can do, you can knead it a little bit, not for like a long time. It doesn't really need it. But if you feel like it's a little too shaggy still or something, just leave it there for a little bit longer. Recipes really are a guidance. They're not an absolute. You know, when I first made brioche for the first time, the recipe said, oh, just go at it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes passed and it looked the same as it did 10 minutes before. So I was like, okay, what's happening, right? So I figured out that I had to like use the paddle attachment instead, and eventually got better at making it. All right. There's quite a lot of, oh my God, this little thing, get out of there. Here we go. So, here we go. So the best way to take this out of the bowl is with a bowl scraper. If you don't have this, that's totally fine. You can use a spatula. You can use your hands. You can use a lot of things. So like this is just very, very convenient. And I'm going to show you really quickly how, someone added their eggs and their batter is very liquidy. So what I recommend, if you added 3 eggs, just start like, it's gonna look shaggy like that. It's gonna look kind of like you're like, oh my God, this is like scrambled eggs, what just happened? Let it go for a little longer, like a couple of minutes. If it still looks the same, just add a little bit more flour until you're getting, like a more consistent batter. And like I said, once you add the three eggs, it's gonna look, well, not batter dough. When you add the 3 eggs, it's gonna look a little bit like scrambled eggs. It's not gonna look like something that's ever gonna come together. It's actually gonna come together as you add the butter. So if you're making it now and you're actually taking the butter out of the fridge, one thing you could do to get the butter to room temperature is you could get like the whole sticks, right, 2 sticks, and put them in the microwave and do like 5 seconds. Take it out, turn it 5 seconds, turn it 5 seconds, right? Until it's like soft that you can actually like make a little bit of an indentation on it. And that's fine. You don't want it to go too fast because what the microwave does is that it heats things from the inside out. I think that's what it does. So like the inside is gonna melt faster than the outside, and that's what you don't want. So you can do it in the microwave. That's totally fine. But if it looks a little liquidy, just add a little bit more flour if it doesn't work. But I would have it go for a little bit longer to make sure that, you know, it's not that the eggs are not mixed properly. Okay, so I'm gonna take this out of here. And there's a lot of, see, like there's a lot of like pieces of dough that are around the ball. That's totally fine. You can just like scrape them down. And something that I should have done that I didn't do. You are gonna butter let me do it now, yeah. You're gonna butter a ball where you're gonna put your king cake dough. So this dough is not like a regular bread dough, right? Bread, when it's like really well kneaded, it'll rise very uniformly. Like this dough wants a tinier baby space. She wants to be cozy. So you wanna make sure, right, that you have something kind of like this. Anything bigger than that, what it's gonna do is gonna spread, and you're not gonna be able to notice if it's rising or not as well. So I'm gonna get some butter. And the easiest way to, again, I always have room temperature butter, I have a butter saver, but the easiest way to do this is to use one of these guys. If you don't have it, what you can do is you can use the paper from the butter, like the butter rubbing paper, and just like rub it all over. You could also use cooking spray because it's not flavor, like it doesn't have any flavor. But you don't want to use like olive oil or something like that. That's not gonna be olive oil king cake. I don't know about that. Let me just grab a little bit more of this and butter this guy up. The good thing is that brioche dough is very buttery already. So even if it a little bit sticks to it, you can just scrape it out. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, this is buttered. So if your dough does not look as like stable as this one, you can always knead it. And the easiest way to get it to be the texture that you want it is to slap it against a surface. That's like the best way to get gluten to form. Especially for a dough like this that is so like sticky, because if you start kneading it, it's gonna get all over your hands and you're gonna be like, what is happening? So this is a bit complicated, but definitely worth learning. So you're gonna grab it like this. You're gonna stretch it, slap, turn, slap, turn. See, and like if you're frustrated or you're having a difficult day, this is great. And see, this one really doesn't need it. It's already pretty smooth on the surface. And again, this is completely extra. I'm just showing you what the process is. So you'll have an idea of what to do if that happens to you. Okay, there we go. So this little ball is gonna go in here. I'm not even going to like make it look a specific way. It's gonna rise and get all weird either way, and I'm gonna have to squish it. So there's no point in like making it look perfectly round. And because I'm not making like a proper brioche, I'm not gonna follow those steps. I'm just gonna do it the way that I want to. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's glutinous, I'll tell you that. All right, so that's gonna be covered, and you're gonna let it rise for about 2 hours, which is why, you know, I said that this recipe is a little bit complicated, a little bit longer. It might take a little bit less depending how hot is your house. Like today, we're having, I guess, a fairly cold day in New Orleans, so it's gonna take probably like about 2 hours. If it was like, you know, 70 degrees outside or something, it'll probably be done in about 45 minutes. So just keep an eye on it. Let me wash my hands really quick. And let me wipe this down because there's eggs and all kinds of stuff in there. Okay. That should be good. Right, so I like to cover my dough with plastic wrap. If you have something that's like more environmentally friendly, by all means do. I need to get something different than plastic wrap. I am very sorry, oceans of the world, but you can use this, or you can use like cover it with like a kitchen towel or something like that. For something like brioche, you definitely want something that's going to be airtight, right? That's not going to let any air in it. You want it to be in a very, like controlled environment. Now the dough is going to take a nap, and luckily, because I made all the king cakes, I have another dough in the fridge that I'm going to show you how it looks in a minute. So the next thing you can make while you wait for your dough to do its thing is you can actually make. Oh, I have a question here. Okay, good. No, I didn't. So you can actually make the filling while you do that. And the filling that I'm making is a cream cheese filling. That's my favorite king cake. It kind of reminds me of something back home in Puerto Rico called quesitos, which is like a cheese pastry that is sweet like that. So that's why I like that one the most. But you can completely skip this part and just like do the braids, do the logs, the braids, and just bake it that way and put icing on top, and that would be a perfectly delicious king cake, right? So that's the great thing about king cake. There's all kinds of ways of making it. I just like the cream cheese one. And for that, we're gonna use 8 ounces of cream cheese, so just 1 pack of cream cheese. We're gonna use 7 tablespoons of butter, and we are gonna use, I think, about a cup of powdered sugar. So I have all these ingredients ready. And in order to do this, you're gonna have to make brown butter. You can skip the brown butter. You can just like melt the butter and use that. I personally prefer the brown butter flavor. I think it gives it a little bit of extra depth. So I need my pan. Okay. So you want a pan like this. You don't want something like a frying pan or something like that, because it's going to be, unless it has a heavy bottom like this. But you want something where you can like mix things in that is like tall enough. This is perfect. And one ingredient that I am pretty sure that is what is in Tortini's king cake, but I don't know. I'm not claiming I know the recipe. I don't. But I think that makes a difference is some coffee. So I have my little baby coffee maker. It's so cute. I love it. And I'm gonna make a little bit of coffee so I can add that to the cream cheese mixture. And the coffee won't really be that present when you taste it, right? It's not gonna be like, oh, this is like a coffee icing. That's not gonna be the taste. What's gonna be the taste is more the cream cheese and the butter, but the coffee does something to it. I don't know what it is. And the great thing about this baby thing is that it's done in like 2 seconds. So make the coffee first. And you're gonna make the butter. Yeah, I might need some assistance. Moving the the phone over here. Actually, yeah. So you want to heat this up on medium-low heat. You don't want to like have this like jumping all over. A lot of people, right, will tell you, oh, you can make brown butter in like 3 minutes. I'm not that brave. If I'm making something savory, like a roux or gumbo, then I don't care. I just put it on high heat and I just mix, because a little bit of toastiness from the butter is not gonna make it taste kind of like, it's not gonna add any bitterness to it. So the way that I cook it, I do it on lower heat. So the milk solids in the butter are actually gonna get nuttier. They're not gonna get bitter, right? It's like once you see those like bits of milk looking a little reddish, that's how you know that it's ready. So I told you all that I'm gonna do this slowly, so let's see if I have the patience to do that. But that's basically, you know, my tip for making brown butter. Okay, well, yeah, and I'm just gonna ignore it. Again, this is one of those times that you're gonna have to like wait and let it do its thing, and then go back to the next step of the recipe. Oh my goodness, yeah, we need to get moving. So while that does that, I'm going to, I don't know, I think I played myself. I'm gonna move this because I don't need it anymore. That was pretty scary, y'all. I saw my life flash before my eyes. Okay, here we go. Move this here, get out of the way. And I am not gonna follow my advice and do this much faster than I would like to, but hey, you know what? Choices. And again, you can just choose to melt the butter. You don't have to get it like super brown. You can just have it go until it's like nuttier than it is, you know, like toastier. Like it's really up to you and your taste. I'm just gonna do it that way because that's how I like it. While that does the butter stuff, I am going to take the other bread dough out. So see, what happened with this dough is it looked like that one earlier, you know, like it was like pretty like sticky and very difficult to work with. I let it rise for 2 hours. I pressed it down and just let it rise again. So a lot of recipes will tell you to punch the dough. It's not the WWE, y'all. Like it's bread. Just, you know, like press it down, like no punching. I don't understand why people do that. So you can just press it down, and then you're gonna cut it in two rectangles, and you're gonna roll those rectangles to be 8 inches by 16 inches. Just give me 1 second. It's my butter. It's living. My coffee's ready. Okay, so let me get going. Yeah. This one, I didn't leave it in the fridge for that long. I left it for 3 hours or so. That's fine, right? If you don't want to wait the whole 8 hours, you don't have to. But if you do, it might be a little easier to work with later. And see, I'm just pressing. I'm not, no one's getting punched. We're not that kind of household. Oh, I think I made a mistake. This time. I forgot that I needed to use this scraper for that. So you're gonna use the scraper. You'll see that like some of it is like sticking to the bottom. That's totally fine. It's not gonna make that big of a difference. Just take it out. And you want to work with it while it's cold. You don't want it to get too hot. Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up because I need to get moving. I want to get some flour so I can have like a flour surface to work on. There you go. And you don't want a ton of flour. You know, it's not necessary. That's a good sign. I don't know if you can hear that on the video, probably not. But the butter is making kind of like frying noises. That tells you that it's separating and it's doing its thing, which is good. And see, when you're making food, there's steps that you should follow, things that you should do. But life happens and you have to act fast. And this butter is going, so I have to go with it. See, so what's happening now, can you bring the camera a little bit closer? Because I would like to show that. What's happening now is that the little bits of milk solids, they are actually coming up. So if you leave them up, they're not gonna toast properly. So you want to make sure that you want to make sure that you stir it so they will go to the bottom and they'll toast, but you don't want to leave them at the bottom for too long because if not, they're gonna burn. Oh, I forgot the microphone. I might have been yelling at everybody. Okay, so this is doing its thing. See, like now it's getting to the point that it's gonna like either take forever to get to where I wanted to get, or it's just gonna turn and it's gonna almost burn. But I don't think it's gonna happen. So let me see if I can. Does it look warm enough? No, I think it does. Good. Well, you know, I can't leave it. That's the thing about this recipe. You really have to, like the bread, it's gonna be fine, but the butter, not so much. Yeah, let it go for a few more minutes and I'll look at it in another few minutes. Yeah, so while that does its thing, I'm gonna get these rectangles ready. And see, it's very sticky, so you might need some flour on both sides. Don't be a hero. Don't be like, oh, I put too much flour on it. It's fine. What matters more is that it doesn't stick to the surface. So add this really quick. Oh, you turned the camera off? Technical difficulties. Is it on? Okay, guys, we'll be a second. There you go. My phone locked and that happened. Well, you know what? We're here now. Okay. Yeah, there we go. It's almost there. And what you can do while you roll one, because you don't want it to get too hot, you can put one back in the bowl, pop it in the fridge. Excuse my very disorganized page. And here we go. You're gonna roll it into a rectangle. So the shape of this rectangle is not as important. What's important is that you have enough surface area for the filling later. You're gonna roll this. So this thing up. Yeah, she is ready. And see the butter, I stopped looking at it for 2 seconds and it was done. So you see, I'm scraping the bottom. Well, I'm scraping the bottom of the pan because there's bits of brown stuff down there. If I would have been more careful and I would have actually paid attention to it, and I had more time, that wouldn't have happened, but that's completely okay because it's not burnt. All right, so we're gonna add the cream cheese here, and this is perfect because while I get those ready, the cream cheese will start melting, and you want to smash it. You don't want to turn it at this point because the butter is too hot. You don't want to burn yourself, so you can smash it into the butter, and the heat of the butter mixture is actually going to end up melting the cheese, and all you have to do is give it a whisk and you'll be good to go. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna eat this guy here. And if there are some clumps that didn't fully mix, you made coffee, so that hot coffee is gonna help it come together. All right, so this guy, I'm gonna put some more flour on here. You don't want to overflour though, I'll say that, because if you do, it's gonna be very difficult to seal later. And that's the whole point of making this cake, is that you wanna make a log and you wanna seal it. And if you can't seal it, the filling is gonna come out a little bit. But if that happens to you, the good thing about the filling in this king cake is that it's very forgiving. It's actually really good when it cooks down. So it's gonna be very tasty either way. Okay. So we have one sheet done. I have a ruler here. I could measure it if I wanted to. Let me see. About. It's enough. And I'm gonna get a pen and this silicone mat. I'm not going to bake it in the silicone mat. I did that yesterday and it's really hard to get it off the mat once it's cooked. So I'm just going to lift it up, which actually is better if you do this. Kind of roll it with the rolling pin and put it here. And the reason I'm doing this, and I'm gonna probably roll it again once I'm done. The reason I'm doing this is because I want it to rest a little bit in the fridge, so it's gonna be easier to roll later. Because we're doing this with within a few minutes from each other, you don't really have to cover the bread to put it in the fridge. It'll be fine. And this is almost ready. You see, I added that cream cheese to this butter, and it looks a little bit of a mess right now. But when you whisk it, it's all gonna come together. So I'm gonna do that now. Where's my powdered sugar? Here it is. Powdered sugar, whisk. And you want to remove most of the lumps here. You could do this with a hand mixer. I think it's a waste of of water, because you're gonna have to wash all that, and that's a mess. So I would just do it this way. Like it's really not necessary. And it's gonna come together fairly quickly. As it comes together, you can whisk faster. And the faster you whisk, the more that it will emulsify. And it's gonna become something like this. Now you're gonna add the sugar. I'm gonna get a spoon because things are gonna get messy if I don't. Start with a little bit first. Mix it in. I did it too fast. See, if you do it too fast, the sugar's gonna jump out. The good thing is that all of this is getting cooked together, so it doesn't matter. So a little bit left of powdered sugar in there. Mix it. And again, as I said, you could just make this with melted butter. But the brown butter gives it a little extra something. And once you add the last bit of powdered sugar, it's gonna get like almost like cement. It gets really, really thick, and that's what you want. See, like it completely changed. I can show you really quick. See, now it's almost like gelatinous, and that's what you want. I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. If you don't like cinnamon, you can use cardamom. If you don't like cardamom, you don't have to use it. You don't have to add any spices. You get a little bit of nutmeg. I like cinnamon. And again, mix it gently because you don't want to make a mess. It's gonna get much darker. See, now it completely changed. And I'm gonna add some coffee. Measure that. On the recipe, it says about, I think 25 grams or something of coffee. I didn't measure it. I do it until it gets to the texture that I want it to be. Oop. And if you notice that it's not as stable as you wanted it to be, you can always add a little bit more powdered sugar. See, this is fine. It should look like that. I'm gonna add something else. I always add a pinch of salt to anything sweet. That's gonna make the flavors melt together better. So you mix that in. And you can do 1 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. It depends on, your taste. I'm gonna taste it. Get up. Try it. Add a little bit of lemon. Just like a few drops. Okay, and that's ready. I want to taste it to make sure it doesn't do anything. See, I could just eat that on its own, and I'll be happy. Let me put that in a container. Oof, okay, we have 27 more minutes. I believe in me. I can do this. Okay, add this in here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in the fridge. So it'll cool down a little bit. It's lukewarm right now. It's a little tepid. But you don't necessarily have to put it in the fridge. You can leave it out and cover it. But I want to make sure that it doesn't. It's not too hot for the bread. All right. Second guy. And I didn't add more flour because there was already some flour in there. Here we go. Okay, so this is about ready. And see, I'm not really putting too much emphasis on it being a rectangle. Like that's definitely not a rectangle. So you can just, do that as well. All right, so now I need to move even faster. So I'm gonna take this guy out of here. Here. And if you notice that a little bit of the dough is a little punctured, right? Like it has like a little bit of a, like this one here is a little too thin. Just don't be as generous with the filling in that side. Right. This is the easiest thing to spread something with. It's like an offset spatula. It's just going to give you more even coating. Let me see if there are any questions. I have been so busy. Okay, so I'm gonna add my filling. Yes. There's so many steps. I'm gonna add 1 and 2, and maybe a little bit extra. One thing about this is you don't need to use all the filling for the king cake. So if you want to use that to put on pancakes or biscuits or scones or whatever you want to use it for, that is completely fine. See, I am adding enough to coat most of it, and I'm leaving about 1 inch from the sides. The 1/2 inch should be enough. You want to make sure that you're able to close it once you're done. So that's 1. And one of them looks bigger than the other. That's, again, totally fine because they're both going to stretch at the end, so that's all that matters. Again, you're going to move it. And this part here is like the part that's like a little punctured, so I'm not going to put filling on that side. I'm just going to put it facing this way so I can keep it from seeping out as much as possible. Okay. And you might think that looks pretty thin in terms of filling. Well, remember we're going to roll it, and if it's more than that, it's just going to seep out of the king cake, and you definitely don't want that. You want it to stay inside while it's cooking. Right. So that's good. I'm gonna, to roll it, what I do is I just kind of like go like this and encourage it to go that way. If it's sticking, you can use your scraper. And if you don't have a scraper, just, press on, it'll be fine. And see, it's very soft at this point. That's when, if that happens, that's when it can actually tear. But again, if it does that, that is completely fine. King cake is it's not like something that needs to be perfect for it. Like if it's ripped, it's fine. Like people sell it at the grocery store and the filling is oozing out. So that's actually on brand for king cake. All right. And then I always, instead of doing it seam down, as most people would do for something like this, I close it on top. Because what I'm gonna do, I move this here, this here. Ah, wow, this was quite the project, y'all. Here we go. I'm gonna move it into the baking sheet. And I'm gonna use some parchment paper to do that. Oof. That is cooking. And you might think, how are you gonna do that? You should have done it on top of the parchment paper. You're right about that, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, so this is how I do it. And I kind of just roll it towards the parchment paper, kind of like that. Ah. And even if it's on the edge like that, then all you gotta do is do this. Okay. I promise you this. And just lift it and put it in there. Something that I recommend you do, if it's too much on the edge like that, is to lift it up like this and press it back that way. And then just cut it. Now we're gonna do this one. So for this one, I kind of played myself because I did it vertically. So let's see how this goes. Yeah, there you go. Oof. Oh, that was way easier. Now I'm scared. Now I think it's gonna betray me. That was too easy. And now what you gotta do is put it back in the fridge. And you're gonna say, oh my goodness, you have to put this in the fridge so many times. You do, because it's gonna be easier to work with later. Ooh. Okay. Come on, dude. There you go. Yeah. Not the most attractive log, but it's gonna be fun. There you go. Put it in here, cover it, and out to the fridge. We're almost done. Now that's gonna cool down for like 5-8 minutes or so. And while that happens, I'm gonna make the icing for the king cake. But in order to do that, I really have to clean this surface because it's a little messy. Some. Well, if you'll have any questions, let me know. Set those aside very quickly. Clean this whole thing. It's getting darker already. Yeah, we are just gonna braid it, and once we braid it, I'm gonna show you one that I already made, and that one will show you how it looks once you bake it, and then we'll be done. We have 18 more minutes. Ah. It's a fight against time. I'm telling you. When they told me, oh, do you want to make a king cake? I was like, I mean, I can make a king cake, but I don't know how I'm going to fit all that in an hour. So I thought an hour and a half would be enough. And now I wish I would have gone like an hour and 45 minutes, but you guys have a life, you know, so I want to make sure that I respect your time. Finish this really quickly. Okay, so we're gonna make the icing, which is quite frankly the only easy thing about this recipe. It's just condensed milk and powdered sugar. I add a little bit of salt to it, a little bit of lemon, just to cut down that sweetness. And you're gonna think to yourself, oh my God, you added all that sweet stuff inside the cake, and then you're gonna add more sweet stuff on top. Well, that's what Mardi Gras is about. It's about having fun. It's about eating what you want. And this is not the time to, you know, think about your health. You can do that the rest of the year. But during Mardi Gras, you know, we eat, we go out, and king cake is the best part of it. So the sweeter, the better. Okay. Here we go. So I have about 2.5 cups of powdered sugar here. And I don't know if I'm going to use it all. So instead of making this in this bowl, I'm going to take another bowl, so it's going to be easier for me to work with. This might seem like a small bowl, but that's going to turn into nothing. Here's my condensed milk. Oh, interesting. Where is my can opener? That's a good question. Here it is. Almost there. Ah, there we go. I feel like I'm racing time. Add the whole thing. not to be too, like, you don't have to like clean it, you know, just like take as much as you can. You can take the rest for like coffee the next day. You can eat it. I would eat it. I'm gonna grab another spoon here. Actually, no, that's gonna take too long. I'm gonna use this. And you're gonna add sugar a little at a time. Let me see. I need a whisk. I clearly underestimated the amount of tools that I would need for this recipe, but see, now you don't only get to see me cooking, you also get to see me cleaning. Both are very useful skills in life. There we go. That's clean. And you're just gonna mix it until it gets the texture, you know, the consistency that you want. The good thing about using condensed milk like this is that you're gonna get a glaze that's gonna have a very durable, soft, kind of runny texture, right? Like if you use something like royal icing, it's, I don't know. I don't think royal icing is the thing for king cake. I personally don't like when the king cake has an icing that's like kind of like hard and thick. Like that's not, it's not, I mean, I don't think it's as tasty. And I like one because it will seep into the little ridges of the king cake. So you're gonna get like more flavor into the cake once you add it. You do want the cake to be cold. You don't want it to be hot out of the oven. Yeah, and honestly, I think this is fine. Like I said, 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. The only reason that I said that is because sometimes, see, like this for me is fine. Like I don't think I need anything else with that. I think I said that because sometimes powdered sugar can be a little finer depending the brand that you buy. So sometimes it might take 2 cups, sometimes it might take 2.5 cups. Yeah, I think this is good for me. See, this is perfect. Let me add some salt. Pinch. Some lemon. Oh, here it is. And the lemon, actually what it does is that it cuts the sweetness. So it's definitely something good to add to like icings and things like that. Yeah, this is good for me. I don't think I need to add. Maybe add a little bit more. Just for good measure. Almost done. And if it gets too thick after you add a little bit more powdered sugar, you can add a little bit of milk. You can add a little bit of lemon juice to thin it out. It's a very forgiving icing. Okay, almost there. Now that's perfect. See, like it's like thick enough that it requires you to put some effort into it, but it's also not too thick that it's not going to pour. You want it to pour. And that should be good. So I think it's been about maybe 7 minutes or so. So I'm going to take those out and I'm going to hope and pray that I can break them. But if I can break them, I can show you how to make it. And even if it doesn't look perfect, like it's gonna be fine because that's the whole thing about king cake. Like it doesn't have to look like a specific shape or anything. Just has to be round. Okay. Alrighty. See, I'm lost in my kitchen because this used to be on this side. So I keep on expecting a table to be here and it's not there. And it's like throwing me off. Let me move this out. Okay. See, I'm just leaving it there for like 2 seconds already makes such a difference. So you want to, this one turned out on the seam and I'm like, girl, that's not what I want right now. So I'm gonna stretch this one out and see, like I'm stretching and I'm not pulling, I'm just kind of like letting it do its own thing. And the good thing about stretching it is that you're gonna end up with a much better form. Okay, so this part is a little tricky. You're gonna grab these again and you're going to kind of do something like that, kind of turn it like that so you seal it. And leave like a little point at the end, so it's going to be easier to seal the rest. So lift this, and it's going to be harder than it needs to be, but just put it this way here. Move this one this way. Stretch this one out. Put this one on this way. Stretch it out. Move this out of the way. Yeah, this one goes this way. This way. I don't even know what I'm saying. You know what I'm doing. Just basically repeat what I'm doing. Just alternate it until you get to the end. And you have a little point there. And now, actually, I'm going to bring it all together and make a little bit of a round. And there you have it. This little part here is always going to look kind of weird. One day I'll figure out how to make it look like this way, but today's not that day. So I'm going to stretch it out. I'm going to get some parchment paper. Actually, you know what? No. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm still going to do it because I don't have time and I need to get moving. All right. This is the moment of truth. To lift this, you got to be pretty gentle. What I always do is I kind of like grab it this way and make it like into a little, and then boom, that. Didn't even like the shape that it has is the shape that it has. The life that it chose, it's the life that it's gonna have, right? And this is what this king cake is doing. So you are going to cover this with a towel and let it rise for about 2 hours. But what I'm gonna do, just to show you how to do it, is I'm gonna brush it with some egg wash. And egg wash is actually gonna give it a good shine that is gonna make it look really pretty once it comes out of the oven. And if you put it beforehand, which I should have done yesterday, if you do that, what it's gonna do is this old little creases here, they're gonna seal better. So that's definitely something good to do. And all you need for egg wash is literally a little bit of like a teaspoon of milk or 2 teaspoons of milk and a whole egg. If you have a medium egg, even better, because you're gonna have to use a whole big egg for this. And you just coat it all over. If you're doing the egg wash first, what I recommend that you do is that you put plastic wrap on top and then put the towel on top of that plastic wrap. And it's gonna, you don't need to do a lot. All you need is like the tiniest bit. And I'm gonna use the same plastic wrap that I have here to cover it. And I'm gonna grab a towel. And there you have it. The king cake is gonna rest. Luckily, I have one that I already made. And I'm gonna show you how to decorate it. Whew. Okay. So here it is. Doesn't it look pretty? Isn't it so cool once it's done? And all you gotta do at this point, now that's cool, all you have to do is you just have to put the glaze on it. And this glaze is getting very thick, which is actually great because you don't have to because it's gonna set really well. And I like using brushes for this. You can use whatever you have. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like you're just, honestly, I'm getting a little a little impatient. So I'm just gonna do this and let it do its own thing. Who am I to tell the king cake how to live? So I'm gonna just like spread it around. It's gonna go everywhere. It's gonna be pretty messy, but that's the whole point of king cake. And actually, I didn't think I was gonna use all of this icing, but I think I'm going to. Yeah, that's enough. This is gonna set, and it's gonna be easier to like, cut into it. Just a little bit extra. And again, there are no rules as to how the icing looks. To me, this looks perfect. And if there's icing on the sides like that, pulling on the sides, that to me is deliciousness. So, why not? All right. What I should have done that I didn't do is I should have taken my sugars out of the cupboard, but I'll do that now. Oh. I am short, so I need my stool to get over there. Living on the edge, basically. All right. Oh, okay. That was the choice. So you want to do this on the right order, right? You don't want to be like mixing the colors. So just to make sure, because I don't want to mess up, I think it's purple, yellow, and green. I think that's the order that it's usually. Yep, I was right. Amazing. So let's start with purple sugar. And honestly, you see this pool here? Sometimes when you buy a king cake from a grocery store, like it'll have like a pool of icing right in the middle. Green. And I only found these sugars. Usually they have more vibrant sugars at the grocery store. But these are the sugars that I have. So these are the sugars that I'm using. And you don't need a ton, right? You just need to coat the. Actually, no, I want a ton. And there you have it. King cake. Done. I would cut a piece, but I think that if I do, it's gonna be a mess because it's still too wet. But yeah, it's a whole thing. Like it's a process, but it is definitely worth making. So I would look at the recipe that I sent you. You can make it and send me a picture. I would love that. I definitely like to see when you guys make the recipes. And it is so tasty. So Mardi Gras Day is February 16th this year. So yeah, 16. Yeah, February 16th. So you can make it this week, and you can eat it, or you can make it for Mardi Gras Day. If you make it and your family doesn't eat the whole thing, you could save it, freeze it, and then you can make bread pudding with it. Like if you ever want to make bread pudding, you just get like cut it into like 1-inch pieces and get 2 eggs, about a cup of like heavy cream, a pinch of salt, maybe a teaspoon of sugar. It's already so sweet, and just like pour it over the king cake, put it in the oven for like 40 minutes, and you have bread pudding. But yeah, thank you guys for joining, and I want to see that there are no additional questions. Okay, well, let me see. A cross section. I think that we saw that you showed them that with the camera. So yeah, thank you guys for joining, and I hope you guys make it and let me know what you think. Right, bye.